The presence of far-right extremism within society is often shaped as a common but marginal phenomenon. However, it is important for practitioners to realize that even a small presence of far-right extremism does affect society in many ways. Far-right extremism aims at polarising society, creating a clear distinction between us, natives, and them, referring to people with a migrant, Roma, or Jewish background. Pavel Klymenko, working for the Thler network in Austria, explains the main features of the far-right extremist narrative.
The narrative originates in and exploits the fear of demographic changes in Europe, and the right-wing extremist groups are claiming that you have to actively fight against the replacement and reconquer the space. The narrative has been picked up and promoted as the return of the white man as a warrior, taking some of the features of the Nordic mythology, taking on the new issues that are presented as the reasons of the decline of the European Christian civilization. So they're talking not about racial holy war as they've been talking before, but about issues of identity, religious identity, sexual identity as well.
Bjorn Ihler, co-founder of the Khalifa Ihler Institute in Norway, tells about the two main far-right extremist attacks that took place in his country.
Norway is also in a fairly unique position in having had one very large-scale far-right extremist attack, and 77 people lost their lives back in 2011 to Anders Behring Breivik, who killed 68 at Utøya Island, where he attacked the Labour Youth Party, and he also blew up the government headquarters in Oslo. Then recently in August, a man named Philip Manhausen killed his adopted sister, his stepsister, and then went on to a mosque right outside of Oslo, where he attempted to commit a mass shooting but was overpowered by members of the Muslim community. And these two acts are kind of the tip of the iceberg, and then underneath there you see a bunch of attempted attacks, but also a lot of kind of general hatred, hate crimes, various forms of violence at various levels. So far-right extremism is very present in Norway and very present across all of Europe.
Bjorn explains which far-right violent groups are active in Norway.
So in terms of outright violent groups in Norway, as well as the rest of the Nordic countries, we have the Nordic resistance movement, which is basically an outright neo-Nazi movement. Those have supporters that are kind of on the softer side of things. SIAN, which stands for Stop Islamiseringen av Norge, which is the Stop the Islamization of Norway, is one of those supportive groups. And around that, we see kind of an environment of people who are generally supportive of not necessarily direct violence, but structural and cultural violence against people of Muslim origin, pretty much whether they are Muslims or not.
Former far-right extremist Staszek, Czerczak, who is the founder of the Codex Foundation in Poland, talks about the relation between far-right extremism and football hooliganism in his country.
In Poland, there are around 300 groups of different levels of football leagues. Each and every one of them legitimize their actions by far-right ideology. So that there are numerous acts of violence on racist background, but also homophobic and xenophobic.
Pavel Klymenko, who is a specialist of discrimination in football, explains the potential relationship between football culture and far-right extremism.
It has to do with the football subculture in general being infiltrated by the far right since 1970s in the UK, and then developing into various side trends across Europe, including Eastern Europe and outside the EU. So the football subculture has been susceptible to the far right ideas for a long time, and the far right political groups are recruiting football hooligans as foot soldiers, basically. We've seen the street protests in Czech Republic, in Hungary, Poland, against the LGBT community, against refugees that are being headlined in the streets. So in the front rows you would see the football hooligans as foot soldiers.
For Pavel, online gaming is the next big thing as regards the spreading of far-right extremist ideas, especially among young people.
The communities that are forming around the streamers, around the games, and the type of meme culture that is being formed, that is influenced by the far right, is a big problem. And I don't think that the gaming companies are doing enough to tackle it, and streaming platforms are doing enough to tackle it.
There is widespread concern that far-right ideas are becoming more and more accepted in the public sphere, as Bjorn points out.
Some of the particular concerns is the things we used to think were fringe, the things we used to think were far-right seem to be more and more accepted in mainstream politics. It's more and more accepted in kind of mainstream discourse. And it shows a shift towards the right, largely. But it also shows that we as societies are more polarized than we've been for a while.
Lisbeth Kristine Røyneland, leader of the Norwegian National Support Group formed after the 22nd July mass shooting attack 8 years ago, shares an inspiring practice from her country.
We asked the government to have an information center, not just a memory ground, but an information center to tell the public what happened and what right extremism can lead to in the worst extent. And that has been a real success story. There has been 200,000 people at the center from the day it opened, and the school classes are coming. And the government has decided to make right extremism and the learning of 22nd of July an official thing in the school.
Involving former far-right extremists can help tremendously. Stascek Czerczak explains.
Codex Foundation is a group of international experts and of course people like me, former members of the far-right movements. For future, we are planning to set a network of formers to help other people willing to exit far-right groups and help them in a systematical and professional way.
Pavel Klymenko explains how to prevent the far-right ideology from spreading to football.
A very simple example from football is how the ideas are reproduced and how the domination of the far-right ideology in some football subcultures is maintained is by bringing the symbols of hate into the stadiums and displaying it openly. So when young teenagers go to football matches, they see the cool guys standing behind the goals, doing all the most active singing, all the performances in the stadium. They want to join. And when they join, the first thing they're being exposed to is the far-right ideology that even before kind of getting to know something about the football culture or the players on the team they're supporting, they're learning that, this is the space for white people. We don't like black players, we do monkey chants at them, we do Nazi salutes. So basically stopping and excluding the organized far right from the stadiums works when the new people who are coming to join are not exposed to the hate symbols, to the ideology.
For Bjorn Ihler, dialogue is key.
The most important things we do is invite to dialogue, to speak with people who are different from us. I think in terms of most inspiring practices are practices that create spaces in which people can come together and have conversations and listen to each other. We tend to forget that one of the more important aspects of having dialogues is also listening to those who have different and diverging views from us.
Dealing with far-right extremism is challenging and requires time and patience. Our interviewees raised numerous concerns depicting far-right extremism as a worrying phenomenon, which currently affects not only the mainstream political sphere, but sports like football and online gaming. This is why it's crucial for practitioners to propose alternative narratives and that policymakers implement concrete measures like preventing the extremist hooligans to attend football, to reduce the influence of far-right extremism in the public space. Please visit the website of the Radicalization Awareness Network to find more information about its activities. And check out our new fact book on far-right extremism, available on the RAN website in the papers section.